All right.
Just in time, Diego Sanchez, with president of Housing Wire, and our guest here for Real Fridays. And again, just as a setup, Real Fridays is a podcast that Jeremy Potter, Brock Cassidy, and myself started. We've been going at it for about 2.5 years now. And the nature of it, Diego, was just to focus on real talk, real insider talk, and to try to create real substance for those that, the thousands of people that watch it in the days and weeks ahead around mortgage, housing, and finance, right? And to try to get that sort of insider perspective on the industry, on what's happening. So it's kind of like a videography version of Housing Wire, right? But you guys do such a great job on your podcast and your interviews. It's phenomenal. But we, as practitioners, are just trying to do sort of the same thing.
Yeah,
without any journalistic integrity at all. We're not bound by that.
Yeah, that makes it interesting for sure. Rick, thanks so much for having me on your show today.
No, that's great. No, look, I obviously I've been looking forward to this conversation because Housing Wire seems to always have the problem of its own success, right? Like every time you guys establish a goalpost, it just, you always almost have to move it. Because you accomplish, I think, your goals, and you sort of always tend to outdo yourselves. So how do you do that? Like, what are you doing for 2026 that's going to make 2025 look less than what you're going to do in 2026?
Yeah, I'm really excited about 2026, and thank you for that compliment, by the way. But 2026 for us, we're bringing it all together now. So we've spent the last several years building out this all things housing approach to our news, to our coverage, to our analytics, and to our data. And we recently closed on the acquisition of the Builders Daily. So that gives us coverage of the home building vertical to add to the coverage that we're already doing in real estate, in mortgage, in title, and in appraisal and valuation. So all things housing, super important to us. And then the other piece that we've been perfecting over the last couple of years, really ever since we bought Altos Research, is infusing that housing market data, that mortgage rates data into our coverage and into that all things housing approach. And I really feel like we've gotten there. And I'm really excited actually about a launch that is coming up. We're going to be launching basically a dashboard, or I'm thinking of it like the Bloomberg terminal for housing.
Can I show it? Can I show it?
Yeah, absolutely. Bring it up while I'm talking about it. You've been very helpful in kicking the tires on the beta, which we have out now to a couple hundred of our existing Housing Wire subscribers. But we're going to be launching this. The hard launch is actually at our upcoming Housing Economics Summit, which is on February 10th in Dallas. And so I just can't be more excited about this launch. We've called it Project Sonoran. We've been working on this for a couple of years now. Yeah. And it's really the next iteration of the Housing Wire subscription, where we're blending that great Housing Wire news and analytics that you get from the Housing Wire newsroom and from Logan Mohtashami, with all this amazing data that we've got in this proprietary Housing Wire data set. Yeah. And we're still in beta, so there are probably still some kinks in what you're looking at and what you've been kicking the tires on. But this is the next step for Housing Wire.
Look, it's foundational, and in some ways, like and again, my in the old days, you just open up the newspaper that's sitting in your front door when you wake up in the morning, and I always fire up Housing Wire, both the web platform, but I'm starting to sort of open up to this because this beta, foundationally, I think what you guys are doing is exceptional, and I think it's really useful, and I think what makes it exceptional is potentially how useful the data could actually be on a very local or on a national level. And I almost imagine potentially kind of a world where policymakers or those in Washington could just fire up the dashboard, the Housing Wire dashboard, and be able to tailor it in a way that if they have specific initiatives around, low to moderate income goals or specific objectives, when Fannie and Freddie release a pilot project that NFM or other top lenders participate in, that they could potentially fire up the Housing Wire dashboard one day, right? I'm just thinking my vision of what I look at something like this to be, and to be able to use that as my dashboard of impact and how I can impact either my company or my industry on how it's impacting specific metrics or specific target markets. Because I love this. I love what you guys are doing and what the future of this could really look like.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned all that. We really do view it as potentially the dashboard that mortgage executives like yourself, real estate brokerage executives, policymakers, folks who are thinking about home building across the country. We want this to be the dashboard that they return to time and time again during the day. And this initial data set that is in there has a lot of really good data. But what I can see over time is us building out more proprietary data sets, partnering to bring in more data into this dashboard, so that you're right, it does become sort of the operating system for.
Well, at some point,
Yeah.
not to interrupt you, but I remember when I was at cross country, we always had this ability to be able to look at the macro and the micro data nationally, and then be able to look at how we compare it to it. So it was sort of really aligned between internal data and external data. And I could see you partnering with large lenders like NFM or others to say, look, this is phenomenal. Now let's overlay NFM data of our branch data, production data, trends, forecasts, everything over the top of it, recruiting pipeline forecasts, whatever, to be able to look at how that really impacts the national outlook or the macro. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love what you're saying. I mean, we already have the ability to compare different data lines within one chart, and the dashboard out of the box will come with, and we'll probably analyze the national picture in the housing market versus your state and your city. And we can even drill down to the zip code. And so you can track all these different data points, by the national picture. But like you said, real estate is local, and there are a lot of realtors and LOs and branch managers and on up the production food chain who would want to drill into a specific area as opposed to just look at the national picture and compare that area against the national picture, and also maybe even, to your point, compare their own production against the national picture.
Yeah, no, I've been really excited about this. I've been compiling kind of a list of suggested, recommended future additions and things to even improve it further, but just as you requested me to do. But I really like it. I like what you guys are doing. And it kind of begs the question of the future direction of Housing Wire, because there's always, media companies always have this tricky balance between, reporting the news and being sort of the data behind the news, right? And because at some point you become the news, you become part of the news. They always say in journalism, you never want to be the subject of the news itself. But when those actors that are making movements in the business using your data that you then therefore are reporting on those events that are happening, which are being driven by the data you're driving, it's a really interesting and precarious, but an interesting sort of intersection of just media, data, and sort of process. And how do you go about this?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're really starting to think of ourselves more as an information services company, even more than just a media company. We're doing both, right? But we really are, to your point, some of our analysis and research that we're going to be doing is going to create the news cycle as opposed to respond to the news cycle. And I think I think that's all a part of building this dashboard and being the kind of the center of the hub of this community of mortgage executives, real estate brokerage executives, policymakers, top producers, who are all coming together around this dashboard and kind of living in this dashboard during the day to operate their business. I think it actually makes sense that there's that virtuous cycle that you talked about.
Yeah, no, one of the things that that I think you guys are doing right is the ability to try to customize information to be able to ensure that it stays relevant to sort of me as a singular user. Like I'm distributed retail. I focus on mergers and acquisitions. I want to grow a retail mortgage bank, and so I'm able to sort of synthesize what it is that I want to see, hear, or watch from a videography standpoint, hear from a podcast standpoint, and read from a editorial standpoint items. So I spend a lot of time trying to, playing with my feed on this. One question I had, totally separate, off camera, but on camera, is there a way to do notifications so when an article comes up that specifically is on my area of interest, that I get notified from that automatically?
Yeah, it's something that we're working on for sure. And we've had newsletters in the past that will get triggered by certain kinds of articles coming out.
Yeah,
we haven't perfected that. So if you go to the activity center, which I think was where you just were, that bell on the top right there, there's some customization allowed there, but it's not exactly what you're asking about, in terms of push notifications. It's something that we're working hard on, because, I'm so glad that you brought this up, and we did not talk beforehand. So I love that this is the way that the conversation is going. Our newsletters are great, but they can, for some people, they can be a little bit too broad, right? Like, you don't necessarily need all the news in the housing ecosystem in the morning. You need that news that's really relevant for you. And so, as we build out these dashboard capabilities, you can absolutely bet that we're going to be trying to hone in on what people's interests are. And at the same time, building out our newsroom so that we can provide even more detailed and in-depth coverage in these specific areas that our subscribers are wanting to learn more about.
Part of why that's smart is that you pay for convenience, right? And so you can charge premiums on how acute the data is, or how personal it is to the lender, to the loan officer, to the real estate agent. And it's not just arbitrary assessments of additional. It's not like an HOA do where you're like, what am I getting for this money? Where it benefits some and not others. It's something that you can, because it benefits each individual user on a very acute and personal and individualized level. Paying extra for it makes sense. I'd love a newspaper where every article becomes relevant, or specific to me. It's no different than walking down a mall and trying to get advertisements or specials to articles of clothing that are things that are relevant to me in my past purchase decisions, which is why, targeted ads and in the future of sort of advertising is so dynamic,
Absolutely. And, artificial intelligence can really help us here. And in fact, I think we're going to roll out some AI helpers in this beta either today or on Monday. So you may see them start to creep in to the dashboard really soon, where we're going to try to help explain the charts that we're displaying on the fly with the help of AI. And I think that gets to your point of like, AI can help us really personalize the data, personalize the news. So it is more of a one-to-one relationship. And that's exactly how we want to treat our subscribers, the folks who are paying $400 a year to access all of this great stuff that we're publishing in this dashboard. We need to get more personalized. It's really important. And there will absolutely be upsell opportunities over time to like dig further into the data, but we're actually not changing our price that much, if at all, when we launch this dashboard. We're going to bring this as a benefit to existing subscribers. So I'm really excited about that, and to see like how are people interacting with this dashboard. We've got a couple hundred people in there now, and we've got a lot of analytics in there showing us what people are clicking at, what people are looking at. So we're going to evolve really quickly based on how people like you are using the dashboard.
you know, it seems like your career has sort of gone full circle. I mean, you went to Harvard for undergrad. You went to Columbia for your master's in finance and business. It seems like housing and real estate is a really good academic fit for you, because it's just given your academic training. It seems like your other jobs you did after that, after grad school, didn't quite seem to hit what you're equipped to do and capable of doing. And then now HousingWire comes around, and it seems like you're really, running at a really strong, fast, aggressive marathon pace. If
Totally.
you will.
I had a whole career in B2C media before I joined Clayton Collins and HousingWire almost 8 years ago at this point. And you're absolutely right. While B2C media is very sexy, and that's probably why I went into it, it did not take advantage of any kind of analytical strengths that I developed over my career and in school. And this has been great. Like it's the need for data in housing is so profound, especially if you want to build a lasting business, and be a leader who's making a difference in the housing economy. You need to be data driven and analytics driven. And I don't think I really appreciated that before joining HousingWire, but that this journey over the past almost 8 years has been all about that, all things housing with data included. And you're right, it's like a perfect fit for me.
My approach to leadership has always been very Moneyball driven, very data driven. The problem, I think, with a lot of mortgage companies, and I think before I discovered this, my problem at the time too, was I always had this agenda to go into a market and to penetrate that market through, a strategy that was my strategy and not one that was appropriate for the market itself. Driven that by the data. And a good example would be, this is actually an internal, example at NFM, where I was talking to one leader in the company, and I was talking to a woman in Louisiana that was doing about $8 million a year in business. Average unit size is maybe $169,000, $170,000 a unit. And the immediate sort of scoff, when you're so used to your average unit size being 450, 425, 475, conventional, clean, A-paper kind of consumers, it's so easy to kind of scoff at like 170. Like why would you even be in the business for $170,000 units? Or why would you want that person whose production is only 7 or 8 million a year? And the reality is, you want that individual because, number one, relative to Louisiana, that person, well, number one, a female originator doing 8 million a year in business ranked her within the top like 15 in the state as a female mortgage professional, number one. So highly attractive. We got to mirror. If we don't, I don't know how we can sell to populations that we don't mirror who they are, like internally, whether it's Black and Latino or female borrower home ownership. Companies need to sort of mirror the populations and the communities in which we sell into, right? So the number one, I think that's a data-driven question. It was like, well, where does she fit in this? Number two, at 8 million a year in production, she fit within the top like 75 in the entire state of Louisiana, right? Because even though it was low production volume, she was doing a ton of units because she was only, $170,000 a unit. So I was looking at it from a data-driven perspective and assigning value associated to that because of who this individual was, right? And without that data, people were looking at that saying, why would you do that? I don't get it. Like, why would you waste your time on this in light of what we're accustomed to doing, right?
Yeah.
So the data, and this is why you guys are peaking at let's hope not peaking, but I think you guys have peaked at a really interesting inflection point in the industry because data is becoming more and more accessible, more than it really ever has been. And AI is only accelerating that.
Totally. And this is definitely going to be a peak. And then we'll go on for the next peak after this, but launching this dashboard and becoming that center of the web in terms of how the housing economy is data driven and functioning. This is a big step for us. And then I think where we go next is like, so far you've been testing in a desktop environment, probably for the most part. Can we build this out so it's much more mobile friendly, including an app version? Can we add more data, whether it's stuff that we build internally, that we partner around, or that we buy? Can we add more coverage, right? Like we just bought this home building publication, but it's really interesting to look at the interplay between single family and multifamily. Multifamily has a big impact on a lot of the metrics in single family. And so can we push into multifamily over time? There's several tangential coverage areas that are interesting to us and that will help our audience make better decisions faster. And then, like we talked about before, can we dive into specific areas? Servicing is really interesting right now, secondary, and make sure that our coverage in those areas is up to par with the level of executives that are in our platform.
It's interesting with your background being B2C, there might very well be a day to provide, because ultimately your customers are lenders and real estate agents and builders and policymakers, but ultimately that whole ecosystem are delivering products and services in policies for consumers.
Yep.
Right. And so if there's a way that you could assist that and by channeling that, by doing a direct to consumer play by facilitating lenders, because a lender could ultimately potentially upload an entire 20-year or 30-year worth of closed loan data into like a Housing Wire, data set or support service or something, to be able to connect, to keep the consumer connected to that lender and to enrich the consumer with additional information about opportunities on home equity, opportunities on their home, any products and services associated to their home. It could be an interesting, three-dimensional sphere as far as where Housing Wire could go. I mean, there's just no limit. I think once you guys have, there's been so many media companies that have come and gone, and you start with print and you start with content but they just lack the vision to go beyond the editorial.
Yeah.
And now that you guys have really, it's almost like a rocket that just sheds the old rocket, and then the new rocket kind of gets it, additional altitude further. It seems like you guys have shed that first rocket that got you to a certain level, and now you've added a new booster to it to be able to get you through the use of data into greater heights in revenue.
Yeah, I think that's right. And you think about old media that is just ad supported. That's a harder business. That can be a tough business, especially in the kind of market that we've had for the past 3.5 years. But you add in subscriptions and you add in events, which we've gotten very good at over the past couple of years. And that's a really good business. And the nice thing about media, subscriptions, and events is there's a flywheel effect where, the source that you get for the story in the media business can absolutely show up on stage at one of your events and will very likely want to be in the premium tier of your subscription products. And so there's a really nice mutually reinforcing virtuous circle that's involved between those three businesses. And it turns media from a tough business into like a really good growing business.
It's interesting. So we're Clayton's had the company since what, 2011, 2012 ish?
Company was founded in 2008. Clayton led an investor group to buy it in 2016.
Oh, 2016.
Yeah.
And what's next as far as the ownership aspect of it? I mean, partnership opportunities mainly as its focus is, like sort of what's the longer term vision of the organization?
So we are definitely acquisitive, and we've done 5 acquisitions in the past 7 years. And we've got a pretty extensive deal pipeline where we're thinking about adding in capabilities to our existing subscriptions. Maybe there's some new subscriptions that we want to take on, certainly adding to our coverage, thinking about things like multifamily and other verticals that we want to push into. So I think M&A will continue to be a part of the picture, a big part of the picture. Stay tuned in the first half of this year. We're working on stuff right now.
Good.
And then we're private equity backed, and so I could see that continuing for a long time. I could see us eventually getting big enough that we'd want to be a public company. So we're definitely on that growth path right now. So in terms of ownership, right now it's private, but as we get bigger and bigger and bigger, it might make sense to go a different path.
Now it's exciting. So coming up is the Economic Summit on February 12th. Is it? What was the date?
February 10th.
February 10th. I know I'm going to be in attendance, and then after, and that's actually the attendance for that is actually pretty healthy right now, right? How many people are attending?
Super healthy. Well over 200 attendees at this point, which at this point in an event cycle is great. The space starts to feel really full at about 300. We've definitely packed more people into the George Bush Presidential Library Auditorium at events like the AI Summit. But it should be a really good room. The attendees, like their resumes are awesome, and the speakers are incredible. It's going to be a really good event, and it's the first of 5 Housing Wire events in 2026. So we'll have the Housing Economic Summit in February. We'll have the Gathering, which is going to have about 1,000 people in Austin from across the housing ecosystem. That's in late April. And then we will have our AI Summit, which is just, you've been to these summits, just an incredible technology-oriented event. That's in the late summer. And then we'll bring back our Mortgage Banking Summit in early October. And then, as part of the Builders Daily acquisition, we acquired a home building event that is in its early years, but already attracts very senior executives from the home building ecosystem. So we'll do that event in late October. And like I mentioned before, events is something that we've gotten really good at, and I'm really proud of. It's become our second biggest business at Housing Wire. And that's for a reason. The woman who leads that business, Brenna Nath, is just doing a fantastic job of building a community of senior executives from across the housing economy who want to come together and network and learn and do business together. And so I feel like each time we do an event, it gets better and better.
And to sort of give Brenna even further kudos, what's interesting is, many would say we, in this business especially, we don't need another mortgage conference, right? That was true. Like this is a list of every mortgage conference that I posted. And actually the number of people, and this is the list of every mortgage conference that I could find in the United States for mortgage and housing, right? And I have all the Housing Wire conferences on here and so on and so forth, right? And this list was just as long as it was when you guys started doing your conferences. And the point is, when you have a good idea, it doesn't matter how saturated the market it is. You have the opportunity to penetrate it really fast. And the conferences you guys delivered with so much unique value that the word spread really quickly. And then all of a sudden it became like the go-to conference amidst all the conferences that were going on. Like if somebody had said, should we do another conference? Probably the sentiment would have been like, Housing Wire, don't do it. Like we don't need another conference on the itinerary. But the difference is if you add really substantive, unique value and opportunity for really executive and and practitioner peer-to-peer value, then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, we need another conference. We need like the right kind of conference. We need a good conference to attend.
Yeah, we found some magic with, like we've been talking about all things housing this entire conversation. And, we were doing that across the rest of the business, but not with events. And there really isn't anybody that's doing all things housing with events. And so when we did the gathering for the first time in 2024, and the gathering was a combination of a real estate executive event called the Gathering of Eagles and a mortgage executive event called Housing Wire Annual. When we combined those two events together and created this all things housing event under the gathering, it was like lightning in a bottle. It was awesome. Like that first gathering was really special.
Yeah.
And the second one was
the venue was amazing too.
Yeah, we're focused on good venues where people are going to stick around and not disappear into a city. Like they're going to network and do stuff after hours. And so this year we're in Austin in a couple of months. A great venue that we've been at before called the Omni Barton Creek. Like I said, we're going to cap things at 1,000. So I expect that event to sell out probably in March. We're already, I think we're over 400, and we're several months away. And it is just an all-star list of attendees, really amazing executives from across the housing economy, great real estate brokerage executives, great mortgage executives, great people coming from DC and from our technology partners, great people from title, great people from appraisal and valuation, and now great people from home building via this Builders Daily acquisition.
Well, I know Greg and I are pretty excited to attend the gathering. And that's always, as we look at the calendar year for conferences to attend, that's always number one, quite frankly, along with maybe a couple of others. But your AI summit, I think, was excellent. That was a kind of inaugural conference of its type or of its kind. There's always been innovation conferences and different types of. There used to be the Mortgage Tech Conference years ago that sort of expired. But so there was a real vacuum to it. My only ask about the AI conference would be if there'd be real demos, like real illustrative, like that's fine. Like, let's talk about the theory of the future and what's happening. But like there's enough activity in the last year and a half that has occurred with real examples, real test cases, real voice AI, real conversions, like real vendors that are raising a lot of money that are delivering real value today. And there should be real metrics to say, like, we saved this much, we've scaled this much, we've accomplished this much as a result of it.
Yeah. And that's probably mostly on me. We had a difficult demo experience at a live event several years ago. And ever since then, I've been very wary of doing demos, but we figured it out. We actually did several at a couple of events in 2025. So we're going to roll those out more broadly in 26. And I would expect there to be a bunch of demos at the AI Summit.
Yeah, Better did a demo at a recent one that I was at, and I was just blown away at how advanced Neo and Better have gotten in their efforts. We use a company called Inside.ai that we invested in and that we deployed internally, and that's been exceptional. Where deals are just being sort of sought after and caught and applied for, and then it just shows up in your pipeline as a loan officer. I've always said that AI is it's the velocity of decision making. Jeremy Potter will talk about, there's sort of the year of propensity, of like the likelihood of things happening. And then I always talk about velocity of how quickly, like once something goes from sort of, a theoretical opportunity to a practical, like a real life, like rubber hits the road opportunity, and the ability to quickly execute on that, is where technology is becoming far less technical and far more operational. So no, I'm loving it. I'm loving how you guys are taking a really leadership role in that.
AI has been a really fun one. And, we're right there with mortgage companies and real estate companies in our AI journey, and starting to infuse it into our products and into our news process. And it's amazing. It's really fun. It's a decent part of my day, interacting with assistants to help me do my job better. And you're going to see a lot of AI assistants infused into the Housing Wire subscription and into our other subscription product called Altos, which is more about tip of the spear real estate agents becoming local market experts using data. That product is going to have a lot of AI assistance infused into it over the coming year. So, if we talk again in a year, when you ask me, what's been exciting in 2026, I think getting that AI assistance infused across the Housing Wire ecosystem is going to be a big year for that.
Look, there's 1.5 million realtors out there, 1.3 million or so. So to be able to even to get 20, 30, 40,000 power users on the platform paying a subscription, to me, the more money you guys make, the more expectation there is on you guys to innovate. To me, there's an obligation with revenue, and I know you guys take that seriously, to repurpose that to continue to add greater value.
We do, and we talked about ownership structure before, and how we're thinking about growth. Clayton and I are, first of all, we have a very supportive board and group of investors. And they really let us run with growth and investing a lot of the cash flow back in the business. And that's exciting. That's really fun as an operator, to be able to do that year after year. And that's been the case all 7 years that I've been in the business. They've been extremely supportive, and I think we've paid off for them in that we've grown so much in that time. We're going to continue to be very growth oriented, and so that's growth through M&A and also organic growth. We've had a ton of organic growth. It's been about 50-50 our growth, between organic and inorganic. But we launched the Housing Wire subscription from scratch back in 2020. Same with our event business, launched it from scratch back in 2018. So organic growth is really important to us, and we will continue to invest heavily in our subscription products. And what's, I think, unique about us in terms of like media companies, and the reason I talk about us being more of an information services company, we actually have built out a very sizable product and engineering team, where we can build a lot of this stuff instead of relying on vendors and technology partners. We're building a lot of this stuff ourselves internally with our own product managers and our own engineering team. And that's super exciting, and also allows us to be very flexible and innovative. And so for things like this dashboard that you're testing, we're getting input all the time from this beta group, and we're immediately acting on that input in our next weekly sprint. And so like the beta has been improving ever since we launched it a couple weeks ago, every week, with the feedback that we're getting from the people that are testing it.
No, I love it. The last question is the aspect of integrating social media, podcasters, or how do you encourage or create an environment where there's encouraged collaboration, where whether it's content or whatever the case may be, there's partners, almost like strategic partners of Housing Wire, where you're encouraging that content to be funneled in and through Housing Wire to create more value for Housing Wire, but then also to provide a value-added sort of platform services or additional offerings that you guys may not be servicing or providing, that are being provided sort of separate and independent, but you still want to keep them separate and independent, but have them sort of funneled through Housing Wire in some unique sort of collaboration.
Yeah, we need to get better at that for sure. I mean, a lot of it has been, if we get excited about a publication or a content creator, they go into our acquisition pipeline, and we think about bringing them under the Housing Wire umbrella. We've done less of the strategic partnering, probably mostly because there's been so much internal organic opportunity to grow. and to build out this all things housing coverage and to infuse data, that's taking up all of our time. And so there isn't a lot of executive mind share to go out and pursue a partnership strategy. But it's something that we need to get better at. There's some really interesting content creation going on in the housing economy that we're not that involved with or not involved with at all. I'd like to be more involved for sure.
Well, I love this time. I really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you, man. I'm looking forward to the economic summit here coming up in less than 4 weeks.
Couple of weeks. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's 3 weeks. Yeah,
Yep.
That's so very much looking forward to it. And so we'll see you in Dallas and on February 11th. And let me know if I can do anything for you. But this is a wrap for Real Fridays.
All right, buddy. Thanks so much for inviting me on your show.
Take care, man.